Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sights on Sinnoh, episode 51 of this podcast as we head towards Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. This week, as we cover episode 33 of the anime, Battle Dimension specifically, I'm joined by Manny. How are you today?
Doing pretty good. Just finishing watching Scary Ghost videos caught on camera.
Oh, okay.
In honor of the name of this title, so I thought, I fight fear with fear.
Yes.
And I will admit I was a bit freaked out.
Okay.
Even with the sun out and whatnot. But again, the theme, we're fighting fear with fear.
We're doing a lot of things this episode. I don't know.
I like the Japanese title better. It's it's called Gligar Wings of Friendship, which is a nicer tone.
That sounds way more pleasant.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Right? They could have kept that.
That's a theme of most of the series, with the Japanese titles probably being a little better or smoother, but we'll talk about that more as we go through. So this is an interesting episode for a few reasons. We are following up on kind of what happened last time, which was that Dawn caught a new Pokemon.
Yes, which I was super excited to see. I think for me, Johto is probably my favorite gen, just based on the fact that it was confirmation that Pokemon wasn't ending just with the 151.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember the episode where Professor Oak reveals that Johto existed. Just the joy and amazement of like, oh man, like new Pokemon, like we're gonna get to see new Pokemon. Mm-hmm. So I think just because it's the gen that follows after the original 151, it held a special place in my heart for me. So Johto will always be my favorite, and Swinub is definitely one of those. I think for me, every Johto Pokemon, I think their design I just love. So anytime I get to see a Johto Pokemon, I'm always excited. And finding out that she caught a Swinub, I did remember parts of it, but not seeing this episode specifically. So I'm really glad that she added it to her team. Originally in Johto, I wanted Ash to add it to his team, but I'm glad we finally got it on one of the main characters' teams. Although I hope she keeps it as a Piloswine, because not a big fan of Mamoswine. So hopefully she finds an Everstone and keeps it on Piloswine.
I definitely prefer Mamoswine to Piloswine. We get a bit of a peek of what we know about Swine up here, which is that it's very hungry, tries to steal Piplup's food, and Turtwig intervenes, being like, no. And everyone's like, that's Turtwig.
Yeah, it poor Piplup was about to fall victim to Swinub's gluttony, but Turtwig being the guardian of the forest and still doing its job was just like, yo, like I gotta step in and keep the peace.
Right. And while that's happening, everyone else realizes that Gligar seems to be missing, and they look around as everyone's just enjoying their lunch. Just a fun little look at all their Pokemon, really. And then Gligar just comes crashing into Ash out of nowhere, which is his whole stick, basically.
Yeah,
but he's excited.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume that it was probably training on its own before realizing that it was lunchtime, and then it just came excited to see Ash and landed on its face.
And it wanted to show Ash that it learned X
Yeah,
Scissor.
Oh, that's true. That's right, because it was showing off the X Scissor. That's true.
Right, and that's why I also assumed, it like trained or something and found that it learns this new move.
Technically, it already had it because it used it against Gliscor.
Did it?
Yeah, because remember I asked you if it was pronounced cross scissor?
Oh, I thought that was okay. Why is Ash so
I think he was just like,
surprised?
oh, you've been training with your cross scissor to kind of improve it.
Oh, I
Yeah, I
see.
think that was the feeling of it.
Oh, he was more like, oh, it looks more powerful now or
Yeah,
something.
I think that's what it was. It was like, oh, you've been training it up, your move,
That's
rather
true.
than,
Okay.
yeah. Because I feel if it was new, he would have said like, oh, you learned.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was confusing for me because I was like, oh, is this like new for Gligar? But I guess it's more visible that he knows X's are now, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, which okay, that even brings into question what what happens later in this episode. But Brock kind of points out that it seems like Gligar was encouraged to get stronger after facing off Gliscor and losing, which we get a flashback to, and immediately Gligar gets kind of depressed about.
yeah. You see, you see, Gligar is like so proud of like showing off its cross scissor to Ash, and Brock brings up the defeat, and and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
its mood just like changes, and he's crying. He's like, "Why, Brock? Why? Why did you have to remind me?"
Yeah,
But
like I was so happy. I really was mastering X Scissor, and you just came
yeah,
in like that.
and it's cool that they kept its Japanese voice actor.
Oh, for Gligar?
Yeah, for Gligar, and
Oh, that's funny.
I think Buizel is the same voice actor as well. I
Really?
think so. They sound, if not, they sound very similar.
Okay.
So yeah, it's cool that they get to keep at least some of them. Like with Pikachu
Yeah.
as well. I mean, Pikachu was probably the first, and they probably weren't planning on keeping it for the English dub, but I guess it was just at the time already established. So yeah,
Right.
it's really cool to see when they keep some of the Japanese voice actors that voice some of the Pokemon.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, because I know that in the Japanese version, isn't it Bakugo's voice actor who does Weasel?
If it is, then I had no idea.
Oh,
Um,
I thought I thought you're the one who told me that.
no. I said Weasel reminded me of Bakugo.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, like it's characteristic.
Never
Not that,
mind.
yeah, not that it was voiced. That would have been cool though.
Well,
But
it
no,
looks
no,
like
no.
it is the same voice actor actually, English
For
and
Weasel,
Japanese. Yeah,
yeah, okay, yeah, then it does sound
and
similar.
it's
Yeah.
Kiyotaka for Furushima.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So then that
Um,
was right then.
but and I could totally see him being Bakugo, but I don't think that's it. Oh, that's really funny though. You know who he does play? It's someone from My Hero.
Oh, I think I know who it's. The tape dude, right?
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah. So that guy voices Paul in the sub as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
weird.
So
Oh,
yeah, he's the
wait.
Japanese. He's the Japanese voice actor for Paul as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, in the sub. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
So so yeah, and then I was like, and you can't really tell just because of his tone is more like lower and a bit
Mm-hmm.
more serious, and
Right.
then when you hear Seto talk, it's like completely different. So I mean, kudos to voice actors like being able to manipulate their voices like that. Because I don't think I'd be able to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That amount of control is definitely keen. And in this episode, the reason we're talking so much about Weasel is because Gligar looks really amped to train and battle. So Ash is like, "Hey, well, let's get some practice in," and calls in Weasel to be Gligar's training partner. So they have a bit of a spar match to start.
Yeah. We see a very pumped up Gligar, and
Mm-hmm.
Ash kind of motivating it, like, like, let's do this, like, don't be too afraid, just face it head on. And it's motivated at first, but tragically it doesn't go its way.
It's immediately intimidated by Weasel's intensity.
Yeah, and I don't even think Buizel was like trying to intimidate it. It's probably just like
Yeah.
looked at it, but Gligar just kind of felt it. And I
We
wonder, like, with
Mhm.
this entire episode, like, I wonder if it's a youngling, Ash's Gligar, or if that's just its personality.
I feel like it might be because it was always the last one in the group. When we stopped flying around and avoiding like the city that it was in. Like he was always just the last one to find out like everyone's leaving and stuff like that. So it's either the youngling or like the runt of the family. And here we see Gligar trying to go in with X Scissor, just like kind of swinging its hands, but Weasel just backflips and continues dodging.
Yeah, because it's not. I don't think it was said in the English version, but in the Japanese version, Ash tells it to use it continuously, which is
Oh, that
why,
makes more
yeah,
sense.
which is why it keeps doing that.
I see. Okay. Oh, he does say use X Scissor and keep it going in English.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Then I didn't
Uh,
hear that as well.
right. I missed that too. So then Weasel goes in for an Aqua Jet, and Gligar's just again spooked out by Weasel and runs over to Ash for safety. So they both get hit by Weasel's Aqua Jet, and Ash is just like, Gligar, what's happening? Like, what's wrong with you? And Gligar starts crying.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was expecting Weasel to kind of stop midair, but I'm
Mm.
assuming it can't stop Aquajet that easily. So
Mm-hmm.
tragically, Ash and Pikachu both had to kind of suffer, and then yeah, we do see like Ash kind of getting upset, and I feel like that's the the aspect of how strict the Japanese culture is when it comes to things like that, like training and manners and kind of being like proper etiquette, I guess. So they had to find a way to kind of give him a reasoning for kind of being upset. But it did get. I feel like it was a bit too far that he was kind of upset because the way that he spoke to it.
Huh.
Um, and then we see Don just come in and kind of baby it.
Kind of calls out that he doesn't want to spoil Gligar too much.
Yeah,
And
he definitely calls her out of the Japanese version. He goes, "Hikari, don't spoil it."
Mhm.
Whereas here he's pretty much telling Brock like, "I don't want to spoil it."
Right, and Brock says,
Um,
"Well, you also can't treat it too harshly because that's not going to help either."
yeah, and then that's why I kind of got like this whole: is it a baby? Is it just like
Mhm.
a youngling, or was it just like not as good as any of the other Gligars? Because it is kind of like raising a child. Like you don't want to be too strict, but at the same time you don't want to be too lenient with a child. So we kind of got a glimpse of Ash kind of having to play the mean parent here, or the strict parent, not the mean parent, the strict parent.
Yeah.
Because yeah, he has love and affection for Liger, but he's not gonna like dry up its tears or come running to it whenever it's afraid or sad.
Right. Like I can understand Ash at some level being kind of frustrated because Gligar's the one who kind of wanted this training, but then it keeps it keeps just like quitting as they try to do some practice moves. Um, Even like as it goes in for a steel wing, it just gets scared of Turtwig like getting ready to take the hit and immediately changes direction instead and uh, goes into Ash as it starts crying again.
Yeah, and for some reason Pikachu decided to try to, I guess, run for the day, because I don't know why Pikachu would have ran with Ash.
Yeah, why was
Um,
Ash?
yeah, like Pikachu could have easily just stood there and not done anything. Well, because it it's pretty small, so Gligar wouldn't hit it in its direction.
Right.
So that, but it was very comedical because Ash is like, I think he got flashbacks to the main trick, and he's like, no, not me, not me, go over there, go attack Turtwig, and yeah, and we hear like a joke from Dawn saying like, oh, like it shows, I think what was it, something about it finally flying straight, which I think was,
Yeah. She's like, of all the times Gligar
oh
finally
yeah,
flies
finally
straight,
fly straight,
it's
yeah.
not the direction we want it to.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a comedic relief. But
Yeah.
I feel like the first time he got upset wasn't justified. I feel like he probably would have been like, "Oh hey, what's wrong? Like, why are you like this?" And I think the second time kind of justifies it, but he was a bit more mad. So I feel
Right.
like if he would have had the vocal tone of the first time, it would have fit this part better, because at this point it sounded like he was just like furious with his Pokemon.
Right. Like he's telling him to stop crying, you gotta start toughening up. And Gligar just, as Ash is like, let's try once more, Gligar just, upset in closed captions, flies away into the forest. And we see Team Rocket is spying on them.
Yeah, which kind of didn't make sense that they wanted Gligar after
Yeah.
wanting it to get beat up a couple of episodes ago.
Right.
But I did like the whole reasoning for Meowth wanting to get it for Giovanni.
Yeah. My favorite part is that Jessie breaks the fourth wall in this.
Yeah, well, she said something, but I don't remember what she said.
Yeah, Meowth is like, I just thought of the perfect way to use Gligar, and Jessie says, "I'm sensing I'm sensing a theme change."
Yeah, I'm sensing a theme change. Yeah, that's right. See, I like that the English version breaks the fourth wall a lot, because in the Japanese she doesn't say that. She's just like, "Oh, well, what's your plan?"
Oh, interesting.
But
yeah,
but I do wish they would add the comedy that Meow does during his storytellings in the Japanese, because he, at one point, he's like, "Oh, Giovanni will be, while Giovanni is sleeping like a dreaming girl, and then the sun comes up, and then that's when they use Gligar." And I thought it was funny that he used the analogy of Giovanni sleeping like a dreaming girl.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I do wonder what he meant by that.
Yeah, huh? Maybe that's like a localization thing.
Yeah, probably. But I thought it was funny. Meowth is very funny in the Japanese version.
Interesting. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I wasn't sure what the. I was kind of curious now that you say it about what that what those Team Rocket scenes kind of look like in Japanese. But here they start looking for Gligar, so Staravia takes off into the air and leads them to where it's spotted. Our poor crying Scorpion. And did you have any idea that this character was gonna be here today?
No, I did not, and I was so glad to see him. I was like, "Whoa!"
It's Poetry Guy.
Yeah, as Don refers to him. Send to you, boy. Yeah,
right.
Poetry Guy.
Or Poetry Guy's grandson, I think is what she says. And I'm like, oh my god, Don, stop it.
And this is his original voice actor, right?
I don't know. I'll look it up, but
I feel like Gary sounded a bit like he does now, but a little more toned down in the Indigo Plateau.
Okay.
Because I do know that he shares the same voice with the current James.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yeah, and his actor also voices Ash's Turtwig as well.
I see. It looks like he's been the only voice actor for Gary Oak. Interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it's weird. I don't know if maybe the voice acting change kind of like messed with my head because
Uh-huh.
I do remember thinking originally back then that he sounded way different, and I had thought that maybe they also changed his voice actor as well. But upon doing research for this episode, I couldn't find anything, so I just assumed that it was his original voice actor. So that's crazy that they kept him.
Yeah, out of like all the people, I guess it makes sense because he's not around too often. This is the second time we've
Well,
seen Gary in Sinnoh.
yeah, but I wonder. Yeah, I wonder why they did him because he's the current James's voice actor.
Yes, so he took over James after the switch during Battle Frontier, but then it looks like they also just kept him going as Gary because Gary only appears in like the last episode of Battle Frontier, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's how
So
we were introduced to Sinnoh.
right, exactly.
Like I popped. I was like, "Whoa, he's here!"
Yes.
But yeah,
So
definitely hyped to see him. I've been waiting for the English version of his episode on Journeys to drop. So I guess I'm gonna have to
mhm.
wait till January to see like the people's reaction to it because I enjoyed that episode. But yeah,
Yeah.
we see Gary comforting Ash's Gligar, and once again, where Don is introduces us to him as
Poetry guy's
poetry guy.
grandson.
Yeah,
And everyone else just like collapses and like, oh yeah. Even Piplup's kind of like, all right.
yeah,
And Gary's like, it'd be a lot easier if you just used my name. Just say it. But Ash, of course, asks the obvious question: is what are you doing here? And Gary says that he's on his way to Lake Valor to take a look at the legendary Pokemon that our heroes saw.
yeah. More specifically, the one that Ash saw.
Yes, exactly. So, what we know about this is that Ash saw something that appears to be a legendary Pokemon, told all his friends, and then Dawn said, "Hey, let's go tell Professor Rowan in the morning." And we never saw that scene.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh, I guess it happened," but it's really interesting that they like we'll just confirm that interaction like 10 episodes later with Gary.
yeah, and it definitely leaves me questioning if there's more to this appearance than just nostalgia. So I'll definitely be looking forward to see if he does appear. If not, then it's kind of a bummer that they got my hopes up.
Well, well, Gary is a recurring character because he's working under Professor Rowan in this region as a researcher.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So,
All right.
yeah, so we do know he'll be around just like appearing. He appeared 40 episodes ago with the shield on that he was trying to rescue from Hunter J. Uh, but they didn't really have time to catch up because you're running from a bounty hunter, so can't do much there. But here he's going to check out like Valor, and so he's going like the opposite way that they're going, and asks about what's going on with this Gligar, and Ash is like, "Oh, that's mine," and Gary says like, "Oh, so you were in the middle of training and Gligar took off, right?" And Ash is like, "What? How do you know?"
Yeah, I always liked the fact that we're first introduced to him as kind of like a snobby
hmm
bully type character, but this entire time he was someone who was very savvy and smart when it came to Pokemon. Um, Maybe it could be that after he had a heart to heart kind of change that he became more focused when it came to Pokemon because the fact that he could analyze it right away that Ash was kind of having trouble training it
Right.
just really shows like he's kind of for me like on the level of Brock in terms of Pokemon knowledge. So it's
Hmm.
it's always good to see that part of Gary that knows like a lot about Pokemon and how to properly train them, as we'll see in this episode.
Right, because he offers Ash his help in just training him, and Ash is pretty defensive. He's like, no, like, no thanks.
Yeah, and And Gary, like always being the tease, kind of tells him like, like your training methods are pretty bad. Which
Because Gligar gets scared and hides behind
yeah,
him.
just fires Ash up. And what he does next, like I didn't like the fact that he grabbed Gligar and pretty much
Yeah.
tried to drag it against its will. It's like, come on, man, you're not helping the case here.
Right. And this is my main issue with this episode is Ash feels weirdly out of character here as he tries to train Gligar.
Yeah, and I wish we could say it's because of Gary, but that's not really the case
Right.
because we saw him before. Like for whatever reason, he was super upset.
Yes, it looks like Ash was already behaving like this even before Gary. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think some people could easily say that if they aren't looking at the evidence that we've talked about already for like the first 10 minutes of this episode. But it's clearly not related to Gary because well, at least it was pre-existing before they met Gary.
Yeah, yeah. I think just the fact that he was a bit upset, but the whole, I think him still kind of feeling inferior to Gary kind of caused his little like outburst to try to drag Gligar against its will. And Gligar's just like, come on, let me go. Oh
Yeah, yeah.
god.
It was definitely played for laughs. And I think it's more that Ash just has a lot of pride.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I can train this Gligar how I think I I'll do well with it. But begrudgingly he accepts his offer to train, and Gary sends out his Umbreon.
Yes, the best Pokemon to ever exist. Umbreon. My favorite number one Pokemon in
Look,
the entire number of Pokemon, which is what, 800 something? Umbreon number one.
I like Umbreon, but Espeon's my favorite.
Yeah, Espeon's pretty cool. I think
Uh-huh.
I don't think I have like an evolution that I don't like. I think all of them are amazing.
Right.
Espeon is really cool as well.
Yeah,
I
I don't think
just
there's anyone who likes Umbreon or likes Espeon and dislikes the other one.
Yeah, I just like the look of it, and I should probably watch it later because they make an appearance. Both Pokemon make an appearance in Journeys.
Oh,
So
cool. Okay.
yeah, I'll definitely have to watch that because they have these really cool like pendants.
Uh-huh.
So I'm wondering what those pendants are for. But yeah, uh, we get a taste of Gary's training methods.
Right, because we haven't actually we haven't seen Gary battle in a while. And he uses Shadow Ball to start off as Gligar kind of tries to go in with a Steel Wing, with its little like short hop attack, but Gligar doesn't get hit by the Shadow Ball, but gets scared by the Shadow Ball.
Yeah, man, just I mean, you gotta give props to Gligar for at least trying, because it's definitely tried on all three occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but right then Gary makes that assumption and he asks, how many times has it been in battle?
Right.
And that's when he finds out, it was beat pretty bad by a Gliscor.
Yes. And it kind of comes together that Gligar is just very scared in battle. Like, he can get very amped up, but is just not good to when he's facing an opponent.
Yeah, I think in the Japanese version he said something to the extent of like Gligar likes to battle, but it gives into its fear easily.
Mm.
And I thought both versions were going somewhere with this, but
Mm.
he just suggests, oh, why not use your tail?
Yeah, like, what?
Yeah, I was like, wait, you just made a point about it being scared. What's going on?
It's a weird direction for Gary to have this insight and then say, let's work on this move And I don't know if he's trying to pull like a 500 IQ tactic here by saying, hey, if Gligar can get over the fear of Steel Wing, it can get over the fear of battling. But I think that's too much credit to give him.
Yeah, but does he say something to that extent? Because I feel like he didn't he?
Okay, so he says, here's the quote. So I guess maybe he does say something pretty similar there that says that the most important thing about working with Steel Wing is to jump as high as you can. So if we can master that, no doubt Gligar will have lots more confidence in battle. That's the English version, and that's the closest I think to what I was saying. But it still just feels kind of
Yeah.
weird to suggest that.
It still doesn't connect.
Because he used Steel Wing fine. Like, if it was one of Gligar's moves that maybe he was struggling with, I could see it. But it's more about, like, the being engaged with an opponent that seems to throw Gligar off.
Yeah, they pretty much glossed over that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Which I kind of wish they wouldn't have.
Especially because of what happens next.
Yeah, it just, like, felt just random, right? Like, it just popped out of nowhere. It's like, oh, like, because it had any what's its battle experience? Like, oh, it got beat. Like, okay, well, why not use your tail? Like, what? And I thought it was annoying as well that, like, after Gary makes a suggestion, Ash pretty much says it word for word.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it was his idea, he's like, oh,
yeah,
use your tail as a spring to go up.
Right.
And yeah, we see Gligar use it, and it's high up in the sky, and then it looks down, and it was having second thoughts.
Abort, abort, abort.
Yeah.
And it aborts right into Ash's face again.
Yeah, it was pretty much swimming in the air to get to Ash faster. I was like, no, I don't like it up here.
Yeah, he was not a fan. So it comes down, and he that's where they say, like, oh yeah, I got beat by Gliscor. And then another random turn, Gary's like, I know, we'll evolve Gligar.
Yeah, he brings out the razor fang.
Yes. And he says, oh yeah, we need this item to evolve Gligar. And if we do that, all sorts of Gligar's abilities are going to improve, and it's going to be better, like more confident.
Yeah. So you see, and I feel like they translated it because when Gary said Gary in the sub, he's like, its abilities, its stats, its stamina, and it will all improve to the point that it won't be afraid anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely translated well for me. Cause like the reasoning as to why he thought it should evolve, because it felt like, oh, if it evolves, it'll be more confident in itself, that it won't be scared. Whereas I think in the English it kind of didn't translate as well.
Maybe, yeah, but it still doesn't feel super strong to me because it feels like it's more about having stage fright for Gligar instead of its abilities. Like it's able to do the moves outside of battle and even in battle, but it gets startled easily about maybe like getting hurt. I think it's kind of the implication.
Yeah, I think what they were going for was kind of like feeding the big kid complex. You know how, like, little kids, like, you tell them, like, oh, like, if you use this, it'll make you stronger.
Maybe,
that's kind of how you like in the second Amazing Spider-Man. There's a scene where he wants to save a kid, but the kid is scared, and so he takes off the mask and he goes, use it, because if you do, it'll make you stronger, and that helps the kid reach out. So I feel like maybe they were kind of going for that, or like, if you evolve, you'll be stronger, so you won't need to worry about being scared.
Right.
And it kind of was the emphasis for it, because you see Gligar like wanting to evolve right after Gary gives it the fang, and it's just like, here, give me it, and Ash is like, no, you gotta go through your training first.
You're right, and this is probably the most in character thing for Ash, is being like, no, evolution isn't going to solve everything.
Yeah, because he definitely learned from that mistake way long ago.
Yeah, and we even had an episode earlier with Pikachu and being like, hey,
God.
we could still take down our evolved form with just Pikachu.
Yeah, I have some things to say about that episode.
Yeah, you and everyone else apparently. But it's about Gligar today, so we're gonna go with that. But I mean, it feels good to see that Ash is like, no, let's not immediately just turn to evolution.
Yeah,
but I kind of want Gligar to be a little more mature mentally too first. If this is its immediate reaction of like, gimme.
Yeah, so you can see right there that it's pretty much the example of a child, because it's like a child doesn't think about working hard for gaining these things, and Ash is just like, no, like, first we need to prove that you can do it without this, and this will be your reward if you still want it.
Right,
but I think
he's
Gligar
not trying to rush Gligar.
Yeah, Gligar was just, I think, desperate to look for any way out that it could overcome its fear. That once it was given like the keys to the kingdom, it was like, oh, I need to have it. Like, I need to have it right now.
Yeah, and I'm mixed on how this gets executed later on, but in theory, I think this is good. But we'll see how that actually pans out. So, they're interrupted by a thematic Gliscor balloon from Team Rocket, which I'm also like, why? Like, you very clearly said you wanted Gligar. You didn't even want to evolve it.
I think it was for the intimidation factor. They knew that it got beaten by Gliscor. But do you want to know something else? This is robot number 1.
What does that mean?
That means they have more. In the Japanese version, James refers to it as the Gliscor bot number 1.
Oh, okay.
So, well, he calls it Glykun, or Glybot-kun number 1. So,
okay.
Just so you know, there's more than one out there.
Yeah. Well, at least it's the first one. Maybe that it just means they can only go up from here. This is the first model, and it does have a cool Gligar tail extension thing, which basically goes down to capture Gligar, and Ash jumps on and tries to rescue Gligar as well, saying that no, Gligar's staying with me, and everyone just everyone just watches, I guess. So Ash sends out Staravia to come help, but it's immediately blasted away by Jessie, who uses her Survivor's Haze and then Mega's Silverwind.
Yeah, and this is Gary's reunion with Team Rocket, calling them lame.
Yeah.
But in the Japanese, he's like, you just never grow up, do you? So they take offense to that, and yeah, she uses a combination of that was pretty hard hitting. I mean, and the fact that Staravia was pretty much like thrown all the way to the ground.
It looks like it's knocked out on the floor, actually.
Yeah, it did look like it was like a one-hit KO, and they unfortunately they had an extra luggage coming with them, so
right.
We will see later on what happens between these two captives.
You remember how you said earlier, like, why is Pikachu running with Ash?
Yeah.
Why is Pikachu not running with Ash here?
You know what? It Pikachu sadly went through an Aqua Jet. It went through uh, Gligar trying to escape Turtwig, so it was just like, nah. You know what? You can take this one. I'm taking a break.
Pikachu's like, nah, this is
Yeah,
overtime for
yeah.
me.
It's like you got this, Ash. Come on, I believe in you.
Ash has been got though because he's in the cage with Gligar as Team Rocket's celebrating. So they are deciding to have a feast of their own in the form of an 8-layer canned food cake, which is just a pile of canned food.
In the Japanese version, it's referred to as a modest meal, but Meowth, being ever so thankful, says modest meal. This is a luxury meal. So it just shows like pretty much I guess they're used to scrapping by with days with no food. So an 8-layer can cake is for them is just heaven. And
they're feasting away.
Yeah, they consume it to the point where they're stuffed and fall asleep.
Yeah, all that pineapple just puts them to bed. But in the meantime, Gary, Brock, and Dawn are looking for Ash and Gligar as the sun is setting. And for some reason, they give this poor Staravia Ash's backpack to carry.
But it looked cool, didn't it? Come on.
It looked yes,
cool.
It looked cool, but if it's flying around carrying that the whole time, it must be so exhausted.
All it needed was to take out some shades, and because what would it have? Ash probably has like what, his tent in there, his sleeping bag that for some reason disappeared. Like
he
used them.
Okay. Presumably, he has all his Pokeballs in there because we don't see him try to escape with any other Pokemon.
And I was gonna bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
So he had all his Pokemon except for Staravia,
right,
in his backpack, and Pikachu in his backpack.
Even though he was just like using Turtwig and Weasel, and Chimchar, like what?
Yeah, but I mean, it was for the plot, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the implication that we're trying to get with the backpack on Staravia, because otherwise they would just have Staravia like flying by itself.
Yeah, but I do wish they would have at least said something like, "Oh, his Pokeballs are in his backpack."
Right, because it sounds like they didn't say that in the Japanese version either.
No, they don't acknowledge it whatsoever. Because I was like you too. I was like, well, why isn't he using Chimchar? Why did he get Turtwig out? What about Weasel?
That by itself is kind of questionable. But then the next scene when they're in the cage trying to get out, we have Gligar continually using X-Scissor to no effect. So then Ash starts trying to tackle the cage, and that also doesn't work. So they eventually get through when they both combine them, but I'm just like, use Steel Wing, use some other move. Like, I don't know why it has to be X-Scissor right here.
I feel it was kind of because the cutting method with X-Scissor.
Maybe. Well, that's the thing, because they try. That's what I was thinking. Like, oh, they're trying to cut it. But then it looks like Ash was actually just trying to get one of the bars to come loose.
He had noticed that it got loose.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. It seemed a little weird to me. And maybe it was partly because they also kept showing the same animation over and over. Yeah, that it was just getting old.
Yeah, and one nitpick that I had was his English voice actor was not good at whispering. I felt like at moments he was so loud. I was like, how are they not awake yet?
Yeah, and like
Whereas in the Japanese, he was definitely whispering. He was like, "Oh, let me try. Like,
Um.
oh, like you go,
Mhm.
Gligar, now. Go do it." He's like, "All right, Gligar, go." I was like, "What are you doing? You're gonna wake them up."
Yeah. Zero stealth.
Yeah, but I did like seeing that there was kind of like a soreness adding to Gligar's
Yeah.
claws. I thought that was a nice
Mm-hmm.
little detail showing that, because sometimes we wouldn't really think about the ramifications of what something might like that might do to a Pokemon's body. So it was
Yeah.
definitely a nice touch that they showed it like swelling up.
Right. That's true. You could see that it wasn't just like Gligar not trying, that it was actually putting a lot of effort into it because its claws were getting red from hitting the bar so much. But this so the third part that bothered me was, yeah, like you mentioned, they try like 5 or 6 times, and each time it's super loud and no one notices. But then
Yeah,
the fourth thing is we see Gligar try X-Scissor a bunch of times again, and it's not strong enough until Ash tries with him. So it really makes it feel like Gligar's super weak.
I mean, I can see that, especially with the fact that it still doesn't have as much experience in battling, and you can also attest to when Ash first starts doing it himself. It kind of motivates Gligar, and it's just like, whoa, like he's doing this for me.
Hmm.
So I think when it came to both of them doing it together, it was more or less Gligar giving it its all and adding like 20% to that,
Mm.
because it was extra motivated, because I definitely didn't get that feeling that you did, that Gligar is super weak. But
Interesting. Okay.
I definitely could see your point, because it does fail numerous amount of times. I just thought it was more like Gligar wanting to do it, but seeing Ash give it his all for Gligar as well kind of gave it that extra nudge, and
Sure.
then them working together was pretty much what needed to happen for them to escape. Kind of as in they're finally like in sync and found their um, partnership in each other.
Hmm.
But yeah, I could see like your point of it kind of being like, Gligar's kind of weak, and it could kind of like set someone off that would see your point of view as well.
Yeah, because they. I feel like every time we've seen a scene like this in the anime, it's typically like the third time that they're able to get through. But here it's like seven, maybe? And it just felt weird. It felt like there was supposed to be something that happens and nothing did. Like maybe if they had talked a bit more each time between about like how to improve, and Ash had given it more instructions, I would kind of see them develop more. But it was, to me, not super justifiable as why they kept trying the same thing over and over.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because yeah, it definitely took them a long, long time until they finally got to break it.
Yeah, and like maybe Ash could have, because eventually what Ash says, like, let's focus on this one that seems to be loose after after like 6 tries. And maybe if they had done that from the beginning or had noticed earlier, I would be more forgiving. I would be more forgiving of it. But it just felt a little awkward to me that they decided that I had to take that many attempts for them to break it loose. But eventually it does work, and they start trying to make their way back to their friends, and they come across the the worst bridge ever.
Yeah, like, jeez.
It's
I
more holes than it is bridge.
Yeah, I guess we can assume that nobody has used that bridge in years.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, and I do wonder what it was for originally, and what new maybe bridge or route that was created
Mm-hmm.
for that bridge to not be used anymore. But this was another case where I was like, why doesn't he suggest Gligar to just glide
Mm-hmm.
over, and
Yeah. What the heck?
he can go through the bridge by himself. But
Aha.
then they kind of like justified it because we see like a big gust of wind come
Yeah.
in. So I feel like if Gligar was in mid-flight, that wind would have taken him and made the situation even worse.
That's true, right? Because we do kind of know that Gligar isn't a very confident flyer,
Yeah.
and with that win, definitely would have just like, bye, Gligar.
Yeah, it would have been a whole different episode.
Oh, gotta find a new Pokemon. But the bridge collapses underneath them, and Ash manages to hold on, and they climb back up. In the meantime, James.
On the other side, right?
No, on the same side.
Oh, was it the same side?
Yeah, that's the worst part. They didn't even make it to the other side.
Yeah, because I noticed like he held on to the bridge that was where they were coming from.
Right.
But when he climbed up, it looked like he had made it through the other side, which was confusing for me. But now that you confirmed it was the same side, that makes more sense.
Yeah, and the reason I know is because he still says we have to figure out a way to get across.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I always forget those parts.
Yeah, there are a lot of these moments in this episode, especially that I'm like, they say things very quickly, and if you miss it, you miss it.
Yeah.
And before we get to this point, Team Rocket does wake up James, and specifically, he tells everyone, "Hey, they got out of the cage. We have to go find them." And Ash, meanwhile, is like, "Hey, let's go figure out how to cross. How about we cut down this tree and use it as a bridge to get across, basically?"
Yeah.
So Gligar uses its new tail trick to jump up and use Steel Wing on the tree, but it's not strong enough and gets hit. It gets bounced back, basically.
Yeah. I do like the aspect of the tail, because it gives him that height, and he, I feel like, I don't know if it did it, but if it would have dived head first and then opened its wings to use Steel Wing, it probably could have gotten more speed and would have probably cut it in the first try. But they had to do it for time, so the first try was a fail.
Yeah, and like first try is a fail, and but Gligar actually does seem more motivated here.
Yes, definitely.
Ash is even like, "Oh, what's gotten into you? All right, let's try." He's like, "Way to go! Now I know you can do it." So it becomes very encouraging and tells Gligar to use Steel Wing again, which it does in a determined fashion, again using its new tail trick. And Ash is like, "Just believe in yourself," and it does, I guess, by like coming down, and makes a path for them to cross, which has a really fun moment actually between Ash and Gligar, who start dancing.
Yeah, that was really cute. You see, and it ends with Gligar jumping into his arms. And
yeah, because Ash offers him the Razor Fang. He's like, "Hey, if you want it, you can do it." And Gligar's super happy about this.
Yeah, it was a really cute moment, and it was funny because I sometimes forget his age, and when Gligar hugs him, he looked just like a little kid.
Yeah.
So for me, it added more to that like wholesome moment. Like,
it's a really cute hug for sure.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, he's 10 years old. What am I doing? Yeah, it looked. He definitely looked like a kid hugging that Gligar in that moment. And it was really cool too, 'cause, like their little dance and then twirling Gligar around. So it was very funny and a cute moment.
Though it does make me wish that they had spent last time on the cage and maybe more time on the tree. How do you feel about that?
I feel like steel is harder to break than wood.
That's fair, but I think it's cooler to focus on the big tree and also the fact that the tree is maybe a little more of a realistic challenge that Gligar can face in the future and also confront using its full potential. Because in the cage, maybe that's why they weren't using Steel Wing, because it couldn't like fly and everything. But here it was very much about, hey, let's use your tail trick and focus on your moves at full potential. Versus the cage being like very limited in terms of what Gligar can do.
Yeah, but the the point of the cage was for Ash to motivate Gligar, which was why in this scene it was more motivated to cut down the tree. So I feel like if they would have spent less time, it would have been too easy for Gligar, and Gligar wouldn't have been as motivated as it was during the scene, because by this point it was pretty much in sync with Ash, which is why it was like, no, like let's keep going, and why Ash took note of it.
Right, like because there's that distinct moment where we see like Gligar not giving up easily, but in some ways I kind of wish this worked for Ash as well, because if here at Gligar had gotten unmotivated and Ash maybe was like angry again and then realized either that he was angry again or that he was compassionate and then realized that he has to be more compassionate with Gligar, that Ash would have that epiphany. It's like, no, I have to treat Gligar like this as well and encourage him, because in this case he can't do anything to help Gligar physically, but he can do it emotionally and psychologically.
I mean, where's that super strength that he's had throughout the anime? I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen him pretty much yeet a log in
Right.
Hoenn, so
hey, he's saving that for when the tree comes down and they need to move it somewhere.
Yeah.
Clearly. But yeah, that's just my take on this little sequence here, which is immediately interrupted by a really funny entrance, actually, that's also like, what the heck? How did you do this?
Yeah, they come through the cavern, right?
Yeah, they come out of the
Yeah,
canyon in their
it's like-
Gligar thing and push over the log.
Like, what in the world?
Like, wait, how did you get ahead and under where they were? Oh,
Yeah,
man.
like, did they use dig and came out? Or, like, was there like a secret rocket base that we're not aware of?
Yeah, right? Like, what happened here? But they're again in their Gliscor robot balloon thing, and Meowth uses the control to try to grab Gligar, but Ash steps in the way. So instead, they've captured Ash and raise him up in the air, telling and Ash, who's holding Gligar, says, "Quick, Gligar, you gotta get moving."
Yeah, and pretty much like throws it like down to its doom. Like, you just see Gligar like reaching up to the sky, like, what's going on?
It's the weirdest thing. Like,
yeah, I feel like he should have.
bye.
Yeah, like he could have thrown it up. So
Like,
that
give
way-
it momentum. Don't just dead drop it.
He just dropped it. I was like, what are you doing?
Gligar, literally, it says in the closed caption, screaming.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was doing. It was screaming to its death.
I'm like,
Man,
what is happening?
I feel
Because
like
first, huh?
I feel like this kid was like, this is for what happened earlier in the day.
His last act is
Yeah.
punishing Gligar. So Gligar goes from shocked to scream as as Ash drops it, and Team Rocket is also shocked. They're like, the twerp flipped.
And then what's even funnier is like Ash is like, well, like I'm not gonna let you get away with it,
Uh-huh.
and he loses his balance because obviously, I mean, it's round. I don't think
Mhm.
you could keep your a flat surface on something round. So he slips, and while he's flying, you just see Gligar just like gliding like whatever. Like,
Yeah, he's just trying to float down.
yeah, it was pretty much floating down. It wasn't even like, oh, like I should go back up. It was like, nah, forget this kid. I'm just gonna go find safety for myself. And you just see Ash like falling, and then it turns to look at Ash like, oh, well, I guess I gotta help you now.
Gligar had no plan. It was like, I guess I'm just gonna
Yeah.
float down.
uh,
And then yeah, Ash like flies past him, and Gligar is like, "Hey, I'm coming," and Ash is like, "Here, catch the Razor Fang." Which, by some miracle, this klutzy Gligar catches and evolves in front of the full moon.
which is a really cool visual.
Yeah, I do like that for
That
sure.
was a really cool visual. Which what's funny is, for some reason in my head, Gligar evolved in a sandstorm during the day.
Oh, okay.
That's how I remember the episode. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was
I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah, because I know I watched the episode when it evolved,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason in my head it evolved in a sandstorm during the day.
Okay, well, this is
Isn't that
very
weird?
much not
Yeah,
that.
it's
So,
very-
I mean, good to
Yeah.
clarify it, I guess.
But yeah, again, it was a very, very, very beautiful, cool visual. It pretty
Right.
much morphed right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, it was a nice little moment for sure. And even Gliscor, or even Ash, is distracted by this as he momentarily is like, "Wow, you're Gliscor now," and forgets that he's falling to his death.
And you know what's, I feel like they do that for the English version, because in the Japanese he's not amazed. He's just like, oh, Gliscor. Like, he's not like, oh, you evolved. He's just like,
Oh,
Gliscor. Kind of like happy that it's already evolved.
huh.
Like, he's not like, oh, you evolved. I mean, of course it evolved, Ash. Come on. You threw it the thing.
What did you think was
specific-
gonna happen?
for that specific reason. It's just like
Yeah.
acknowledging it, like, Gliscor, you're here.
Oh, I guess that both work, but yeah, it does seem a little weird that he's like surprised that he evolved. And as his mortality becomes apparent to him, Gliscor does catch him and hit the ground with its tail, which is now much stronger given that it's a bigger version of a Gligar, basically. And Ash is safe.
Can we assume that Ash was seconds away from his death?
Apparently.
Just by how quick that landing was?
Well, you could maybe justify that there's like a few seconds that they cuts between those two moments.
Because I
But-
was like, whoa. Like,
Yeah, it seems like
They-
instant that they they caught him.
yeah, I was like, dang. Like, if you wouldn't have caught him in time,
It's over.
it's over. He's kaput. He's literally Ash Ketchup. Not ketchup.
Stop. But Team Rocket has not had enough and tries to go in for Gliscor again with their robot mech thing. Gliscor is able to counter their attack with an X Scissor. And then everyone else shows up. Like, okay, how did they get to the bottom of this canyon?
Because
Why were
according-
they at the bottom of this canyon?
because according to Gary, he knew the entire layout of the area.
Oh, he
Earlier
did.
on, when they
Yeah, he said
were,
like, I know this area like the back of my hand. I'm like, no way. There's no way you do. You were on your
well,
way to Lake Valor, so you're
I mean,
clearly passing
obviously,
through here.
well, in the Japanese version, he said he was there for a while, which is
Oh,
why he knew.
really?
Yeah, which is why he
Okay.
knew the layout. He said, "I've studied the layout here for a
Okay,
bit."
Gary.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I
I'll
mean,
give it to him then.
Gary falls in line with Suicune and Marnie, where they just travel instantly.
Yeah. Oh man, just perfect awareness of their surroundings. Everyone's like, "Oh, cool! Is that Gligar? That's so cool. He evolved. Yeah." Starrape like, "Oh my god, finally, I can sit down." Because it's still carrying the backpack. Um, Pikachu's amazed, and everyone's like, "Yay! It evolved." And then Meowth sends in the arms.
Yeah,
Oh,
because according to them, this Gliscor is not gonna look up to the Gliscor robot.
you're right. So it's a full offense for them, and it sends out these like rocket arm claws to try and grab Gliscor, but Gliscor intercepts with X Scissor, and then wraps up with a like samurai showdown between Gliscor and the Gliscor bot, as it first uses its tail to like swing on a branch for momentum, and comes in with Steel Wing.
Yeah, and we get that typical showdown moment
Mm-hmm.
of did it win, did it not? Because you kind of see like Team Rocket being like, yeah, there's no way it beat us.
Right. And then we see that it perfectly sliced their robot in half.
Which doesn't make sense
It,
because
it literally, like, what?
it cut it in half vertically, not horizontally.
Yeah!
So I was like, what's going on? Where are the physics here?
Apparently, Gliscor, like, turned 180 degrees or 90 degrees for, like, a second and then flipped back or something.
I guess.
And,
Yeah.
but even then, its wing is too small to, like, cut it right through the middle.
Yeah.
Anime, am I right?
It probably uses the point of its tail for extra
Maybe
leverage.
it cheats. But yeah, Team Rocket's done for. And then Glasgow comes in for a classic hug. On Ash, and Don's like, "Well, guess old habits die hard." And Team Rocket's kind of sad to see their Gliscor bot defeated, and Pikachu finishes them off with a classic Thunderbolt, sending them blasting off again.
Yeah, and Meowth in the Japanese version had this funny line of like, well, now that it's a Gliscor, we can't use it to cover the boss's face because it's too big.
Oh, he does. Okay, so they
Yeah,
acknowledge it. Nice.
Yeah, that moment where it's like he's just like standing there.
Right.
He's just like, whoa, well, now that it's a Gliscor, like we can't use it for the boss. And Jesse and James are like, well, come and help us out. Like, stop just standing there and thinking about the boss.
Yeah, that's fun.
And they blast off, and one like weird thing was when they eat the cans. Obviously, we see that it's peaches, right? Like peaches or like a pineapple.
Right.
But James says that it was a can of tuna.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I thought that was weird because the voice actor literally says it in English. It says tuna.
Does he?
Yeah, in the Japanese version. In the Japanese version.
Oh, in the Japanese version. Okay.
Yeah, but they show that they're peaches earlier
Right.
on, so that was kind of. It was another Hamilton case where it was one thing originally, and they changed it, just like his original blue hair was changed to brown.
Weird. Okay. Well.
Yeah. So yeah, at the end he was like, "Oh, no more cans of tuna for us."
But yeah, that's kind of it for this episode. It immediately is like middle of the night, and then the sun comes up so fast, like, like it just like whoop, and suddenly it's morning, and they're still standing there. So it's like, what's happening here?
Once the victory is done, the sun comes out.
Yeah, and we see Ash and Gary are like, "Hey, thanks for helping us like evolve Gligar, basically." But Gary's like, "I didn't do anything. The truth is, you were the one who got through all the rough spots with Gligar." And then just like, "Oh, okay, I'll take that then."
Yes. And then he recites a poem by Gary.
Well, before that,
Oh.
Brock does say like, "I hope you get a chance to see that legendary Pokemon." So again,
Yes.
reminding us why he's going out there. And oh yeah, and then that's when Gary responds with,
I'm sure I will get to know more when I get to the lake.
"Oh, he says something slightly different in English." Then, for the English listeners, he says, "I usually catch a break when I'm at the lake."
No.
And Don's like, "Oh,
no. That is not a poem.
hey, it's a rhyme," and that's all Don needs to be like,
Yes.
that's a poem.
Yes, but that's not what Professor Oak focuses on. Professor Oak's poems don't rhyme whatsoever.
Right. And so the English one's like, we'll just make it simple or with something.
And it was funny too because I thought that she was like finally remembering about the lake spirits. She's like, "Oh, that's
Oh
right.
my
That's why you're
God!
here." Yeah, but there's like, no, a poem. I was like, oh.
Right? Like, hey, you saw one too, Don.
Yeah.
Yes. One more time. What was the Japanese version?
Oh, the Japanese was, I'm sure I will get to know more when I get to the lake.
Eh.
And apparently that was a poem for Dawn because she reacted the exact same way. It's like, a poem. It's like, I knew you were his grandson.
Right. Like, she's like, but what do you expect from the grandson of a poet?
Yeah.
So everyone else is just like, all right. But Gary actually is not helping here because he is encouraging her and says, "Okay, here's another one, Dawn."
Yeah,
and the Japanese version says,
"Oh no, I didn't write that one down."
Oh, come on. What were we gonna say?
I thought it was gonna be like when he finally says a poem. She's like, "No, that's not a poem." I thought that was gonna be the joke. Like she compliments, what wasn't supposed to be the actual poem, but like doesn't credit the real poem, but she liked the poem the same.
Yeah, that would be funny for sure. Like, wait, what poem? But instead he says, "Stay healthy and strong and you'll never go wrong." And Dawn's just beaming. And Ash is like, "Oh, good one, Gary." Dawn takes it to heart, saying, "Words to live by." But that is pretty much it there. They say goodbye to Gary, and Ash is like, "Hey, Gliscor, now that you've evolved, we got some serious training to do, so get ready." And Gliscor's, "Yeah, we'll do it." And as the sun comes up above them, literally none of them have had sleep for the last, 12 hours, probably.
Yeah, that's true.
And they continue on their journey.
They're not feeling it whatsoever.
Apparently. So, yeah, what did you think of Fighting Fear with Fear, episode 33 of Battle Dimension?
It was a good episode. It had its moments of comedy and I guess relationship building moments. But it definitely had a lot of flaws that we discussed. So I think as an overall rating, I'd probably give it 6.5.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely has a lot of Pokemon that I favor, which was, Swinub, Gligar, Umbreon, and the character of Gary. But I feel like I focused when the flaws are your main focus during an episode. I feel like the episode isn't doing as good as a job to kind of make you focus more on the story rather than the overall flaws. So it was definitely an enjoyable episode, but I think the flaws stood out more. So I'll give it a 6.5.
Yeah, like hearing your perspective definitely makes it a little more favorable to me, because going in I was like, I was struggling to like this episode. I think one of the big things that stood out was like Ash being out of character for lots of it, and the weird path of logic that Gary was also taking it in some ways to help Ash. But in the end, it has a strong ending, which is usually not the case. A lot of the time, it's like the first half and then the middle are really good, and the ending just kind of like peters out. But this one actually did a surprisingly good job, probably because they know what Gary's going to be up to. So we give like a solid goodbye, and also Dawn's poetry connection to him helps them do something. So I think with that, yeah, Gliscor evolves, and if you want that, that's cool. I definitely like Gliscor on the team. But there's just a lot of weird moments that kind of upset the foundation of me liking this. So with that, I'll probably give it like a 5.5 out of 10. And also, this is probably the episode that convinced me as a kid to teach my Umbreon Shadow Ball in Diamond and Pearl.
Come on, Will.
Hey, I was like, I want a cool move that lets me hit opponents far away like they do in the anime. But yeah, this is my question of the week. Is there any character in the anime who has a move on their Pokemon that you as a kid taught your Pokemon? Because you're like, oh, if they have an anime, like I could teach my Pokemon too. And specifically, if there's a move that you regret, like I did, teaching it just because it wasn't good for its typing or its stats or something. Because Umbreon is not a good special attacker.
Yeah, so with Umbreon, because of nostalgia, I always base it off of what my memory of Gary's Umbreon was. So it always has to have Swift and Shadow Ball.
Oh, okay.
Definitely when it comes to Pikachu, I try to make it learn the movesets of the current anime seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
See, for Pikachu, I always.
Definitely, Charizard always has to have Seismic Toss.
Oh, really?
Because of the anime, it always has to have Seismic Toss. There's a lot of more, but those are the first ones that come to mind.
Are there any of those that you regret?
That I regret from the anime?
Yeah.
That I taught that I regret. Double Team.
Oh, who did you teach Double Team?
Well, every Pokemon. Because it's indestructible in the anime, but
yeah,
in the game, it doesn't really do what the anime shows it does.
Exactly, it's very much hyped up in the anime.
Yeah. Oh, and another one, Swellow with Aerial Ace.
Yeah, that would make sense, though. I'd say.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely like a lot of Pokemon where I see their moves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to imitate. Like when I found out about Magnet Bomb. I was like excited to teach a Pokemon Magnet Bomb, but sadly it was discontinued. So
yeah, I think I taught Baneri Ice Beam because of Dawn, and I'm like, oh, that Ice Beam could really have been better on like most other Pokemon. But yeah, if you have a move like that, feel free to share that in the comments below. As always, you can watch the show on Pokemon TV, which is on mobile, desktop, and Switch. And feel free to share your thoughts on what you've been watching on there, even if it's not Sinnoh related. That would be cool to hear what people are checking out on there, because there's a ton of other anime seasons that you can check out. And yeah, as always, Manny, thanks so much for being here this week.
Yes, always a pleasure. And before I leave, we gotta bring it back to another poem
Oh wow, triple poem this episode.
by the professional himself.
Oh, okay. The source.
Yes. Uh, he's not Samson, right? I always confuse. He's Samuel, right? Samuel Oak?
Samuel. Yep.
Okay. Samuel Oak. And this poem is titled Gliscor. And it goes like this.
Uh-huh.
Entrusting itself to the wind, Gliscor flies shakily.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll take it.
Entrust yourself to the wind. Become one with the wind.
Okay, so Gliscor is a special place for me because there was a YouTube channel called The Dex, and they covered a Pokemon each week, giving like trivia, background, and a lot of information about it, saying how Gliscor cannot fly, but it glides using wind currents. And at the end of the Gliscor episode, they played a little song that they made together that goes something like, "Oh, Gliscor, why can you only glide? You have wings, but you cannot fly. Oh, Gliscor, please, oh, please don't try. We all know that you can only glide." Something like that. Really fun. I might share it.
Look at
if
that.
huh?
I said, oh, well, look at that.
Yeah, it's a cute little song that got stuck in my head for a while. But yeah, they're up there, so feel free to check that out.
Will we be seeing any pre-orders for your debut album as well?
Not quite. I think I'm gonna leave that to Nando.
Okay.
But yeah, feel free to check me out for any other pre-orders that I'm doing on Twitter. I will be teasing.
Who knows? You might show up in the next Pokemon EP.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, I'm the mysterious last artist that they have for the Pokemon 25th anniversary. Which is just, booming with people like Katy Perry and someone else. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, stay tuned for next week as we arrive back in Hearthome City. It's going to be an interesting one. And it's a cool episode. I'm very excited about it. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Again, feel free to catch any of the other episodes that we have down below. My name is Will.
My name is Manny.
And we will see you in Sinnoh. Until then, have a good one.
Keep on practicing those cross scissors.
X scissor.
Oh, yes. Bye.
Bye.